While I think NIS will probably always be best known for their RPG titles like Disgaea, I find myself truly enamored with their smaller non-RPG products. Both Yomawari games are easily two of my favorite horror titles, and even some of their jankier ones like Hotel Nonik or Liar Princess were still engaging in their own ways. Void Terrarium is the next game in NIS's line of budget-priced titles, and I honestly couldn't wait to sit down with it. The story opens with a small robot in a junkyard reactivating itself. It eventually finds a small girl trapped inside a coffin of foliage and a discarded supercomputer named Factory AI. AI reveals that all humans have been wiped out, and the girl they found is very close to dying as well. With a little perseverance and ingenuity though, the two try to build a safe, stable terrarium habitat. They name the girl Toriko, and the two continue to work together to give her the best life they possibly can. Factory AI digs up blueprints and the locations of key items in the wasteland surrounding the junkyard, and Robot goes out and grabs things like food and medicine Toriko needs to stay alive. The amount of detail put into the terrarium section of the game is where all of its charm lies. Robot and Factory AI can build furniture and other items from things scavenged from the dungeons around them. These items range from practical pieces of furniture to decorative lights and plants. Toriko will even interact with certain objects. She'll curl up and sleep on beds, she'll pick up and play with toys, and she reacts differently to the various types of food Robot can give her. Robot also has a few simple, but still endearing emotes when playing with Toriko or talking with Factory AI. It's nice to have such an innocent and charming tone with a plot as dark and heavy as terrariums can get. There's no spoken dialogue, and the theme that plays inside the terrarium is very calm and relaxing. It contrasts well with the dungeons, which have harsher, machine-like arrangements. The exploration sections are standard for any kind of mystery dungeon game. Dungeon crawls are done from a top-down perspective and use a turn-based system. Every time Robot moves, attacks, or uses an item, all of the enemies on the dungeon floor get to do the same. The novelty of these kinds of games can wear thin pretty quickly if the player isn't hooked immediately. There's not a lot of enemy variety between the dungeons, so as long as the player can remember the attack or movement pattern of a particular foe, they shouldn't have too much trouble dealing with whatever challenges arise. The one thing that kept me going was the level up system. Each time Robot levels up, he picks from a variety of new abilities that can vary from raw stat boosts to adding special gimmicks or elements to his attacks. Robot's level will reset between excursions, as do his skills, so each dungeon crawl can lead into wildly different builds. Although I ended up gunning for the same crit dodge spread just about every time. It was the only one that I found that worked really well. It is possible to give Robot permanent stat boosts though. Bringing back blueprints and crafting items for Toriko's terrarium also provides Robot with extra stat increases or ability slots. Some blueprints even grant special abilities, letting Robot start out with skills they'd otherwise have to grind for in the dungeons. Most blueprints are generated randomly, so getting specific stats or skill upgrades isn't guaranteed, but I never really ran into a problem during my playthrough. It's easy to always get at least 1 or 2 blueprints per run. The biggest thing to look for are the storage and bag upgrades, which the game handed out to me at a pretty decent pace, and it let me keep exploring, and really didn't hinder me that much. Terrarium is a pretty short game though, clocking in at a little over 15 hours, with a few incentives like the randomly generated blueprints to encourage playing things outside of just the main story. There's also an endless dungeon unlocked near the game's final act that makes it a lot easier to farm blueprints and items. Combat-wise, it just evolves into Robot becoming an unstoppable monster until they get gimped by an off-screen enemy. It's mindless fun, and it's great seeing what kind of indestructible monster Robot can turn into. But the repetition does start to set in once you reach Robot's level cap. I kinda wish there were more boss encounters inside the endless dungeon. It would have broken up the monotony a bit more. And the main game is already lacking in boss battles. There's a total of 2 of them, and one of them is optional, locked behind an alternate ending. Void Terrarium in no way feels like a rushed or janky product, but it does feel a little lacking. Maybe it's my own lack of patience with these styles of games, but I was racing my way through the final dungeon because I cared more about seeing the ending rather than experiencing the journey to get there. So, is Void Terrarium a tiny masterpiece? No. Is it going to provide an epic and gripping tale about a world without humans? No. Is it bad? Also no. It's really enjoyable if you're looking for something that's pretty laid back. It meshes simplistic but fun gameplay with a lot of lighthearted and charming breaks in between. While I wish there was a little bit more to it, I felt content enough with what I experienced. It's a short title, but not one I regret playing.